I'm someone that's been gaming since childhood, but even decades later, I'm finding new games all the time. Some of them are beloved classics I'm playing for the first time, while others are hidden gems that deserve another look. And then there are the just plain oddities. The Simple series is a line of games that span across multiple platforms and published by a company called D3 Publisher Inc., a subsidiary of Bandai Namco Entertainment. The number that follows the Simple title indicates the price of the game in Japanese yen. For example, a game labeled under Simple 2000 costs 2,000 yen. These games are known for having pretty low development budgets, more than a Flash-made browser game, but also less than a AAA company like Square Enix. These games are also known for being weird as hell. There's a sort of distinct quality they have, as though you could picture them squished somewhere between your Final Fantasies and Crash Bandicoots, and you have a nagging feeling that it may or may not be a shady bootleg. Sure, there are some games that are too out of the ordinary, like the myriad of sports-based games. There are even a few licensed games like the PS1 Hello Kitty games, and even the official tie-in DS game to the movie Flushed Away of all things. Remember that film? But then there are the ones like the game where you perform odd jobs with an excavator, or the one where you fly around in a helicopter surrounding a giant lady in a bikini. So of course, once I found out about the existence of the Simple series, I knew I had to try them out for myself. A few of these games actually gained a fair bit of international popularity, such as Renate Armada and Earth Defense Force. Most of them, however, remain pretty obscure, with a lot of them not even receiving a release outside of Japan. As for the ones that do have an international release, they often have less than stellar translations. But worldwide release or not, I want to share the weirdness that these games have to offer. Here's some that actually did receive an English language release. The first one is from the Simple 1500 series for the PS1 called Power Shovel. This is actually a port of arcade game. In Japan, there was even a plug-in controller you could buy that imitated the arcade game's control interface. As you could probably guess, this game is an excavator simulator. You have your typical excavator jobs you can complete, like digging holes and shoveling sand. But then there's some downright silly levels, such as serving up curry, scooping up turtles out of a pool, and having to do some quick math in order to buy items that equal the exact target sum. Clearly, this is the versatility that excavators were truly made for. I must confess that I'm not very good at this game. Games where you have multiple moving parts that you need to control are a bit of a weak point for me, although I did get a bit more used to it as I continue playing. Not only that, but the strict time limits like this make me nervous and prone to mistakes. That being said, this game was weirdly addicting, even during normal construction jobs. Plus, having these wackier levels is actually pretty clever. It definitely sets it apart from a typical mundane job simulator. With how many normal job simulator games there are now that have elements of silliness to them, perhaps Power Shovel was a bit ahead of its time. Stepping up to the Simple 2000 series, we have Doubleist Girl for the PS2, exclusive to Japan and Europe. In this game, we have Riho Futaba, a pin-up model who is also something of a mascot for the Simple series, as she appears in several of their games. One day, during a photoshoot in Okinawa, she is attacked by a weird alien jellyfish and suddenly grows to the size of a mecha. The European version shows this with a silent slideshow of still images with text, but the Japanese version actually has this opening with a fully animated voiced cutscene. I don't know why they didn't just keep the cutscene and added subtitles for the European version, but there you go. The gameplay involves your character in a vehicle, usually of the flying variety, completing 6 missions in order to stop the dying bikini chick in the alien invasion. This involves doing such things such as getting up close and personal to take her bust, waist, and hip measurements. For science, of course. Then you get to shoot giant tranquilizing darts into her butt. And other places too, but butts are funny, so I wanted to single that one out. During these 2 missions, you can also distract her with a giant cake, or make her stop and sneeze with a whole lot of pepper. Yeah, that's what I'd about expect with this kind of game. Basically, this is the giant lady trope of the game, and all that comes with it. The environments aren't much to look at, but Riho here is certainly well detailed, complete with jiggle physics, to the surprise of absolutely no one. Also, the developer for this game, Topsoft, went on to develop the Sundown Kagura and Hyperdimension Neptunia series, which definitely explains a lot. And you know what? I had a hell of a time with this game. I'm not saying it's a 10 out of 10 or anything, but it's fun and actually decently challenging, so it's not as though it's a zero-effort game. Plus, I think even the most prudish of us can find just a bit of humor in the absurdity of it all. I mean, what other game out there has a giant woman in a bikini shooting out kamehamehas? Not many I can imagine. Next is Paparazzi. Riho Futaba makes a return, but won't choose Rena here for someone different. Your character is enamored with the model of your choice, but of course, he has no way of ever approaching her. That's when your photographer friend suggests that you attend a public photo shoot and snap your way into her heart. The English translated title of Paparazzi is pretty inaccurate, and the awful European cover art definitely doesn't help with first impressions. In the game, you aren't hounding the girl with a camera as she's trying to go about her day. You're actually taking pictures of her at specifically designated photo sessions, and you'll need to earn a specific minimum number of points in order to proceed. The better the photos you take, the more points you'll earn. And seeing as how you're an amateur in all this, the game's Japanese title of Camera Apprentice is much more accurate. And no, you're not taking creep shots of the girl either. In fact, you'll actually be penalized for it, with the reprimand of, "You have not been polite," which can be pretty annoying when it definitely wasn't your intention to take a preferred shot of her, but you still get punished for it anyways. I can only imagine I somehow caught an accidental upskirt shot of her as she was moving around while wearing a very short skirt. There are several things you'll need to do if you want to take good pictures. Before each stage, you'll be given some prerequisites, such as the kind of poses you'll need to get shots of. When the session begins, you'll have to do various actions in order to get the ideal shot, such as switching locations and making sure your subject is properly in focus. Not only that, but you also have a time limit, as well as a limited number of photos you can take. There are also mini-games you can play where you perform actions to gain appeal points from your model. With these appeal points, you can spend them in order to ask the model to do specific actions, such as facing towards you or striking specific poses. Personally though, if I was a model on a photo shoot and one of the photographers started jumping up and down and dancing, I would become too enamored. I just think they're acting weird. I was surprised to find that this was actually a pretty enjoyable game. It's way more than an excuse to gawk at the model's overly exaggerated jiggle physics. Seriously, you'd think she's stacked with water balloons with the way they bounce. There's actually some real-life photography techniques that are taken into consideration for the game's mechanics, like ensuring you have the correct kind of shots, and making sure that your pictures aren't overexposed from the flashes of the other photographer's cameras, which will actually give you 0 points. Having to switch your position is kind of annoying with the loading screen, but it's not unbearable. And with the romantic angle that the story takes on, I'd even call this game kind of cute. The final game on this list is the Maid uniform and the machine gun. Quite a title, isn't it? Unfortunately, this one never got a release outside of Japan, but I found an unofficial English translated version to play. The game begins with some time travel shenanigans, where the bad guys make a plan to go into the past in order to steal their current-day prisoner Masaki's plans. So Masaki decides to do his own time travel shenanigans to create a maid robot named Yuki, so that she can protect his younger self from getting kidnapped. So it's not just a maid uniform and a machine gun. It's a robot in a maid uniform and a machine gun. This is a pretty basic 3D beat-em-up action game, where you go from each area of the map to reach the end of the level, while defeating enemies along the way. In addition to your guns, you also have a katana you can perform melee attacks with. You can even earn some smoke and sexy style points by striking a cute maid-style pose. The more enemies that are surrounding you who manage to pull off this pose, the higher your maid-style rank, which will contribute to your overall level ranking at the end. There's certainly an interesting array of enemies, such as cutesy but evil robot dolls, as well as evil robot maid dolls and mechas, but the gameplay isn't very difficult. Their attack patterns are very predictable and easy to evade. There are, however, some decently challenging boss battles. The graphics are about what you'd expect for a lower budget PS2 title, and the character designs are pretty nice looking. I particularly like the character portraits that you see during cutscenes. Overall, this is a pretty average game. And I had an absolute blast playing it. This is definitely the one I would consider the best of the bats that I played. I admit that a lot of it is carried by its novelty, but I feel like it's hard to hate a game where you play as a cute maid in stylish clothes that kicks ass. It also helps that the gameplay is far from terrible. While I wouldn't call it anything better than adequately enjoyable, I also feel like that it really lets you take in the absurd charm of it all. The game's not necessarily a favorite of mine, but I do have a lot of unironic fondness for it nonetheless. And that about wraps up this summarization of the Simple series. None of these games are very long, and short enough to be completed in a single session, which is perfect if you're looking for some bite-sized entertainment. Are a lot of these games riding on its weird factor in order to get people interested? Probably. But it's also clear that effort went into all of these games. It seems like the goal of them was to provide some simple, brief entertainment, and I think that's just fine. I really believe that there's something to be appreciated about games that don't necessarily set out to be masterpieces, but still give its audience a few hours of silly fun. And when it comes to simple silliness, there's much more that the Simple series has to offer. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to click like, and subscribe if you want to see more.